2025 Farragut Municipal Planning Commission will now begin. Good evening to those of you in attendance and also online. Thank all of you for attending this frigid night at Farragut's Municipal Planning Commission meeting. My name is Scott Russ. I'm the chairman that will be conducting tonight's meeting. We appreciate that each of you has taken time from your schedules to either attend or view tonight's meeting to observe how our town government works. All Farragut Municipal Planning Commission meetings are public notice per Tennessee state law. That's TCA 8-44-103. All Planning Commission meetings are streaming on the Farragut YouTube channel, and links to the recordings may also be found on the Town of Farragut website. Those of you in attendance tonight should have been able to pick up a copy of the agenda at the door when you came in, and if you're not able to attend in person and are viewing from home, you'll be able to see the agenda posted on the Town of Farragut website. For any of those persons in attendance that would like to address this commission concerning an item on tonight's agenda, please pick up a blue card at the door, write your name, address, and the agenda number item that you wish to comment on, and present that to Mr. Shipley, please. There will also be time reserved at the end of the business meeting for residents' comments on non-agenda subjects, which also requires that you fill out a blue comment card. It requires that you also fill out your name and address and topic that you'd like to discuss. On each agenda item, the chairman will ask town staff for Farragut residents' input. During this time, any Farragut resident wishing to speak to the Planning Commission on that specific agenda item may do so for up to 5 minutes. After being recognized by myself, please proceed to the podium microphone in order to be heard and viewed by all. In order to conduct efficient business-like meetings, the town has adopted these rules on how its meetings will be conducted. Primarily, these rules are designed to keep the meeting progressing along, assure that all points of view are heard and considered, and to provide common courtesy to everyone. We ask that you observe the established meeting rules when addressing members of the town staff and also members of the Planning Commission. At the beginning of the presentation, please state your name and address for the record. We ask that you address your questions to the chairman. If necessary, I may call on a commissioner or a staff member to address your questions or comments. Once you've given your input, please return to your seats. We also ask that persons speaking avoid the improper use of improper language and profanity. Please only address the agenda issues. You should strive to present original viewpoints and avoid redundancy. We ask that you also stay on topic for that specific agenda item. Please remember, we are here tonight doing the people's business. It's a very important responsibility for all of us. Now I ask that if you are able, please stand for a moment of silence for prayer and reflection to be followed by a recital of the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I've established that there are 8 members present, and therefore we do have a quorum for tonight's proceedings. Mark, are there any amendments to tonight's agenda?
No, sir.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Abstain.
Noes? This is on the agenda for
Oh,
tonight.
sorry.
Let the record show that the February 20th, 2025 agenda has been approved. Are there any amendments to the minutes from the January 16th Farragut Municipal Planning Commission meeting?
No, sir.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say yes.
Yes. Now abstain.
All abstain.
Abstained. Mark, let the record show that there are 5 yes. Therefore, the minutes from the January 16th Municipal Planning Commission meeting are approved. We have 7 business items to review, discuss, and consider in our public hearing, and beginning with item number 3, agenda item number 3 is discussion and public hearing on approval of a site plan for pickleball courts at Mayor Bob Leonard Park. Town of Farragut applicant.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ron Ostrike, and I am the Parks and Recreation Director for the town. I am presenting the pre-bid designs for the new pickleball complex at Mayor Bob Leonard Park. To give you a little background, for the past several years, Farragut Parks and Rec has received multiple noise complaints from the Brass Lantern residents bordering McPhee Park Tennis and Pickleball Complex. Members of the Brass Lantern HOA have attended both Parks and Athletics Council meetings as well as Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings requesting that the town stop pickleball at McPhee Park. As a compromise, staff worked with both residents and players to implement a system of play limiting pickleball to the south courts and tennis to the north courts. We also implemented a reservation-only system for both pickleball and tennis. At that time, I proposed the board consider the design and build of a pickleball-only complex at Mayor Bob Leonard Park. After they gave me approval to proceed, we contracted with Ross Fowler to begin this process. After initial discussion and projection, the board approved a capital investment program allocation of $1.45 million for the project for fiscal year 2025. The initial complex design was an 8-court design with a 25-car parking lot, coming in at $1.3 million. After presenting this to the Parks and Athletics Council and with player input, the council asked us to consider some additional amenities and a 12-court complex. This was priced out at over $2.1 million, mostly due to disturbed land exceeding 1 acre and thus requiring storm water mitigation. After sharing this with the board, they challenged Ross Fowler to get as many courts as they can and keep the amenities the players have asked for, but stay under that 1 acre threshold. The result is the 9-court complex before you this evening. This complex is projected at $1.3 million. As you can see, the complex has the specific location for the complex is where the current grass rectangle field is along Harrison Road. We'll be moving that rectangle field to the open space behind the sand volleyball courts. This pickleball complex will have 2 ADA parking spots and paths that will tie into our existing pathways. Go to the next one, please. As you can see, the pickleball complex will have internal fencing between the courts. That fencing will be chain link and a pathway to get to each side of the complex. We'll have an external shade structure so players can get out of the sun and rest. That was a request by the players. It initially was an internal shade structure, but as we spoke to the players, they said that the sun really isn't ever over that shade structure. It's only on the courts. We have an external shade structure that can provide that shade, and it allowed us to have some internal pathways and fencing. The front walk will have gates and a French drain between the sidewalk and the external fence, and again, those will all tie to our pathways. Internal lighting will be 36 LED lighting system through LSI Industries with 20-foot poles. There will be one bid alternate to the project, and that is the resurfacing of the tennis and pickleball courts at McPhee, eliminating the pickleball court lines and adding back the tennis-only lines at McPhee Park. The projected timeline for approvals and construction, the bid advertisement will go out on Thursday, February 27th. We will have a pre-bid meeting on March 20th. The last day for questions will be March 27th. The bid opening will be April 3rd here at the Community Center at 2 p.m. And we will take this approval to BOMA at the April 24th meeting. The projected timeline is a 5-month construction project with a projected finish date of September 30. We're hoping for it to be faster than that. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Very nice presentation. Mark, do you have any comments you'd like to add?
I don't have any personally, but I do have one citizen that has signed up to speak to this.
Okay, let's-
Ron, stay close because I'm going to have a question for you.
And that citizen is Kathy Hilton.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, come up to the podium and give us your name and your address, please, for the record.
Kathy Hilton, 331 Sweet Gum Drive.
Thank you, Kathy.
The question that I had was about the lighting, and he answered that question. I was just curious if you could put that slide back up so I could take a picture of it. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put it back up. Let's see.
Mrs. Hilton, we could get that to you if you want to email
How about
us.
that one?
Okay. All right, are we good then? No more?
Yes, that was the only person.
Are you good,
signed
Ms.
up.
Hilton? Okay, thank you. Louise?
Quick question about timing for resurfacing the tennis courts. I know that's a budget item that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will have to sort through, but if in fact they approve it, what does that timing look like?
It would be around the same time of the new court's opening. We don't want them to have an overlap where there's still pickleball play at McPhee when there's still pickleball play at Mayor Bob. So it might be a 1 to 2 week lag. I'm not sure how long it's going to
Okay.
take to resurface.
All right, and that's what I guess I'm encouraging, that they happen pretty quickly
Quickly, yeah.
together.
We want
Like-
that too.
Like as soon as that opens, shut down tennis courts and get them, because that's what the goal here. And then in that time that it's closed down, pickleball players will all recognize that, oh, it's all open over at Mayor Bob Leonard. And hopefully they get the message that this is not happening here anymore.
Hopefully the timing works. We do have tennis that uses the tennis courts. I'm not sure of the timing of FHS's tennis rental,
Okay.
but we've
Well, it sounds like this is the end of this will be done in the end of the
End of
summer or-
September.
End of September. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
What's resurfacing?
Pardon?
Explain resurfacing for everybody.
Well, taking up the current surface, it has striping on there that's embedded in the surface. We can't just take up tape, it's embedded in there. So it's a beautiful design. And when we resurface it, we'll have that same design, but it'll be tennis striping only, not pickleball court striping.
Same type of striping
Yeah.
that's currently at McPhee.
Yeah. And the new courts will have that as well. It's going to be a beautiful complex.
Thanks, that's all I have.
Okay.
I'm going to just run down the other commissioners. Commissioner Devlin, do you have any comments?
No.
No comments. Commissioner Meyer?
Yes, I do. Ron, have we had any conversations, or has the staff had any conversations with Two Rivers, the church? And this is a two-part question. You probably know where I'm going with this. It's pretty obvious to me that there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to park in the Two Rivers parking lot, and they're going to walk across the street to go to our pickleball courts. And so the second part of that was really, I guess, three-part question is, number one, have we had any conversation with Two Rivers? Because it may or may not be an issue. It probably won't be an issue. I would think that our peak times and their peak times are going to be different. But I think to be good neighbors, even though they're not even in our jurisdiction, we probably should reach out to them.
Sure.
And then the other thing that I think we should consider is maybe consider doing maybe a sidewalk tie-in across the street at our expense. Granted, it would be over on Two Rivers, but we're really not accommodating for those folks walking from the Two Rivers parking lot over across Harrison Road at all with any kind of pedestrian access. And so, again, this is a little uncharted territory because we're in another county, another
Yeah.
jurisdiction. But I do think at a minimum, we ought to have some conversations with Two Rivers. I think if we sell it to them as, hey, this is kind of a cool amenity, we think you guys are going to be real happy with it. We also think that it's probable that some folks are going to use their parking lot just because it's so much closer than our parking lot to use our pickleball courts. And hopefully they get excited about it and it's a win-win for everybody. But I don't think we ought to just assume that this is never going to come up, because I do think it's going to come up.
Agreed. We haven't had conversation with them, but flag football and lacrosse use the church now religiously. Religiously.
Pardon the pun?
They use that. They use
their
that for
parking lot.
theirs a lot.
Yeah.
And again, it's off time and such, and that's a massive parking lot.
It is.
That they have. We have not contacted them, but I agree that it would be a good partner.
Well, there would be
Discussion.
no more economical time if we wanted to think about some sort of pedestrian access. So instead of those folks, crossing across their flower beds and their grass areas, and then just crossing across Harrison Lane, we'd probably have to have Loudoun County give us some, but it would be kind of nice if we even had, I don't know, just think through the
A mid-block
pedestrian.
crosswalk.
Yeah, obviously, a painted crosswalk would be great. I don't think there's enough traffic on there to require flashing lights and push buttons and all that.
You could about trip and fall over and be across Harrison Road, too.
Yeah, and it's not a big road, but I do think we need to have, at this juncture, especially with this project, it just seems like it would make sense to have some of these discussions and thoughts put into the plan, just to help mitigate future issues.
Noted.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Noah. Commissioner Pinchuk, do you have any comments?
I'm just super happy to see this project moving along and anxious for it to get finished, and it's a win-win for a lot of people. So thank you for what you've done, Ron.
Sure.
I thought you might be.
Very much, very happy.
Commissioner Green,
No comment.
Vice Chairman, you already had your
I have
comments.
one more question,
Scott,
but I have one more question. Just
please, go ahead.
going off of what Commissioner Meyer was saying. I understand, my concern is if we do put a crosswalk, we talked to Loudoun County and they allow us to put a crosswalk there. Crosswalks are an invitation.
Yeah.
That people think, oh, I can just cross, and they don't pay attention to traffic. If we are going to do a crosswalk, the responsible thing to do is to do a mid-block one that has the lights. There is actually a lot of traffic on Harrison. People use that road as kind of like a cut-through when they don't want to deal with Watt Road, and they do go fast. So it is something that we need to talk about, and then it's a funding issue for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to decide whether they want to fund that, and then talking to Loudoun County about working within their right-of-way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
There's
All
some
right.
discussion we need to do.
yeah, so that's all I had.
Okay, Mayor, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Pass. Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much, Ron. Appreciate
Good
it.
night.
Look forward to the project. Since I didn't ask for a motion prior to discussion, I'll ask if we can have a motion on the floor now for,
Move to approve.
Seconds?
we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Noes? No noes? Mark, let the record show that site plan for pickleball courts at Mayor Bob Leonard Park has been approved unanimously. And this item goes to BOMA next, is that correct, or?
No, that item was before you because of the state law requirement for the public
Okay.
improvements and infrastructure to come before the Planning Commission for approval.
Very good.
So the board's already dealt with it at their level.
Okay,
So-
very, very good. Thanks for clearing that up for my benefit. Agenda item number 4, discussion of public hearing on approval of a final plat for Biddle Farms Residential, parcel 3.22, tax map 143, 3 lots, 19.18 acres, zone Planned Commercial District. Biddle Farms Residential, LLC, applicant.
This plat is the final plat for the remaining portion of the multifamily section of the Biddle Farms at Farragut Town Center project. We had the initial staff comments. We reviewed those with the applicant's engineer at the staff developer meeting February 4th. Most of those relate to just finishing the field items because they probably would have been finished had we not had the weather that we've had in the last couple of weeks. That's really the main thing that we're waiting on as far as being able to, for the town to sign the plat. But we wanted to go ahead and present it to you all for your consideration for approval so that when it is ready, and we can sign the plat and get it recorded and not hold them up for another month. So basically this plat, like most final plats, is just platting the rights of ways, the easements, and the remaining subject twos associated with this that were actually in the packet online. One of those is not applicable, and I'll just review the ones that are, and the staff is recommending approval of the revised final plat, subject to 1, obtaining the required signatures, 2, completing the remaining field-related items identified by town staff, 3, a written agreement is needed on the maintenance of public spaces, landscaping, lighting. We're also waiting on that for being able to sign off on the commercial plat that was presented to you all at an earlier meeting. The 4th one is completion of maintenance letters of credit. We don't know what the dollar amount of those will be yet because we still have items that need to be completed. And then the last one is just the stormwater maintenance agreement that's required for all new developments to get that approved and recorded.
So Mark, you're just removing number 4?
Yes. Yeah, that actually, the Anchor Green Drive roadway, that will be platted with the commercial plat that you all approved a month or 2 ago. It's just we're still waiting on letters of credit for that one and a couple of minor things. So with those 5 subject twos, the staff recommends approval of the final plat.
Move to approve with subject to items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Mark, do you have anybody signed up to comment on this item?
No, sir.
All right, do we have any representative from the applicant? Hello.
Annette Hummel, Site Incorporated, 10215 Technology Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Thank you, Annette. Do you have any comments or anything you'd like to add on the remaining subject to
No, we
letter
just-
credits, things of that nature that Mark discussed?
Now we understand what needs to be done, and we'll take care of it.
Very good. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you.
I'm going to open up, just rather than calling anybody, does anybody else have any additional comments they'd like to make?
I have one question.
Commissioner
On this
Green?
number 2 remaining field items, how many items are we talking about here? This is a big, long list, or just,
Well, right now it's a pretty long list because they haven't been able to get in there and pave the parking lot, which some of that's a public street, is going to be a public street.
what's pretty long mean? Like
Well,
20?
finishing the asphalt,
30.
the curb and gutter, some of the sidewalk tie-ins.
Is that gonna be a problem here?
I mean, they're aware of all these things.
Yeah, they can't get they're not signing off on the plat until all that's
Right.
done.
And we're also holding up the last
One
multifamily
time we
building.
had a comment about how many open items we would have, and I was just curious if we were getting around it by saying we got a few items left. So I was trying to find out actually how many there are, is what I was trying to do here.
Yeah, but you don't want to hold them up if they're tied to this and these are weather related.
I'm not asking anybody to hold anything up.
Okay.
I'm just asking how much work we have left to do, so everybody knows.
If they have
what's
good
on.
weather and they have enough people on site, they could knock it out in a week, easy, what's left.
Transparency here, folks.
Understood.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Green. I guess we can close discussion at this point, and we have a motion and a second on the floor. If the motion stands as presented, I'll ask all those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes? Noes? Mark, let the record show that approval of the final plat for Biddle Farms Residential, parcel 3.22, tax map 143, 3 lots, zone PCD is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 5, discussion and public hearing on approval of a site plan for an express oil change in Tire Engineers Development. Is it? Yeah, Tire Engineers Development. It just didn't sound right. 11155 and 11157 Kingston Pike, 6.6 acres, zoned C1. Civil Consultants Incorporated applicant.
Yeah, this site is the former location of what was the Millworks building, for some of you who've maybe been here for a while. There's two buildings that are proposed. A couple of years ago, they got a grading permit and permission through the Planning Commission to fill part of this lot. This is the lot that is just to the east of the Dr. Irwin's Dentist building and to the west of what was the Blockbuster Shopping Center. I think there's a Mexican restaurant in there now and some other uses, but that's kind of where this property is. So it kind of, before they filled it in, it really dropped off pretty substantially, but they brought up a lot of fill dirt in there, and that's basically where this development is occurring. Most of the rest of the let me highlight this real quick. So you got the oil change facility building is the south building. Down here's Kingston Pike, and then the tire building is the one to the north. And then all this dashed area, this is all floodplain and jurisdictional wetland to the north of these buildings. So they filled what they could within what we allow in our flood regulations. And so now they're proposing to develop this site. This particular site plan has the oil change building is 2,200 square feet roughly. The tire engineers building is 3,200 square feet. There is a sidewalk along Kingston Pike, an existing sidewalk, and they are tying into that. Let me see if this shows it a little bit better. So they're tying into the sidewalk here just to the east of the access, and then they're bringing it around. There's a billboard here that's remaining. So both the billboard and the access are grandfathered conditions on this particular project. This access has always been the access for this property. As probably all of you all know, it's not a good access anywhere through this section of Kingston Pike, unfortunately, but we tried to see if they could work with this property owner to maybe tie in and combine the accesses, but there's some pretty good grade change between the two properties. So they are bringing the sidewalk system through the site and connecting the two parts of this development pretty well with a pedestrian network. As far as stormwater, they are meeting our low impact development requirement with a bioretention area in this part of the development that will drain more than 25% of the stormwater runoff, and that's the minimum that we require. The buildings that were included in the packet, this is the dumpster enclosure. It's brick and stone almost entirely. There's one little band of CMU. It's this little band through here. But good-looking buildings, you know, brick and stone. The engineer is here, and he's got a color and materials board if you all need to see a little more detail of that. But both buildings will be almost 100% brick and stone. You can see those different elevations. And they did a good job with the site plan. The buildings are, from the staff's perspective, they appear to meet the town's architectural design standards. The remaining subject twos that we had on this site plan were relatively minor and typical subject twos that we see for these kind of things. And first one is a letter of credit for erosion control, getting the TDOT access permit because they'll have to be working in TDOT's right-of-way with the sidewalk and improvements to the access. The HVAC units, just to verify that they will not be visible, the unit's actually right here, and it's definitely not going to be visible from Kingston Pike. It may be visible from the eastern property line, so they're going to look at that, and if they need to add a little screen wall on the east side of the HVAC unit, they would do that there. So that's another subject too. Making sure that the landscape plan and the building plans, site plans are consistent with each other in terms of the landscaping required between the building and the parking lot. And I think they've already made that change. The landscape plans go into the VRB next Tuesday. and it's a good plan. Adding a anti-seep collar to the concrete pipe in the detention basin berm, that's a pretty standard requirement. And then the permanent stormwater maintenance agreement that we require with new developments that I mentioned with the previous agenda item. And then retaining walls, the retaining wall is going to be along the east or west side, sorry, of the access here. As I mentioned earlier, there's a pretty good grade change between these two properties. And the retaining wall is going to be built, let's see, they've got a, I think it's going to be, this was in the packet, but it's kind of a brown, concrete masonry unit wall that is, attractive. So that's, but the actual design, the structural engineering design of that was the other subject too. That's going to have to be included with the building plans so that those can be reviewed by the building official and the town engineer for structural, elements and make sure that those meet our requirements. So that's the remaining subject twos on this site plan. If anybody has any questions for me, or like I said, if the applicant's here, they have the color and materials board if you want to look at those.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Before we move on, I'm going to go ahead and, before we open up discussion, ask that we have a motion and a
Move
second.
to approve with subject twos.
And we have a motion and a second. Sure, if you don't mind, if you want to bring up your materials and share those with the planning commission, let them have a peek at those. And then I may ask you to, they may have some questions or comments for you.
My name is J.T. Murphy with Civil Consultants. And these are the display boards with the materials.
Which one's the wall?
The retaining wall?
Yes.
Upper left-hand corner? It looks like from the rendering Mark had it.
So the retaining wall material is actually not on this. This is only the building materials. This is a split face CMU that's going to be on the building. The retaining wall will be a similar material. It's made by geostone or similar material. Split face, a little bit darker material. It looks pretty good. It's not cheap.
It's not just a flat concrete block?
It's not a flat.
Okay.
Do you want to see it? I have it. I can show you that to you. It is not what,
I've got a print right here I can let you take a look at.
that's that.
Okay, yeah. Familiar with it. Yeah. Great, thanks, Louise.
You're welcome.
That's good.
Buildings look good. I'm ready to just open it up for any other comments or questions for the applicant.
I hate to assume anything, but I'm assuming that material is going to be attached to what?
I'm sorry.
The retaining wall material, how
Yes.
thick is that? Is that going to be attached to concrete block, or what is that? I mean,
No, it's a stone, it's a block wall.
It's a
So
block of
It will
wall,
not
okay.
be a veneer.
okay,
It's a split
that's what I
face-
wanted to know. So
split
how
face
thick would you
block.
say it is?
I don't want
The
to say
thickness?
exactly, but the thickness of the wall is typically around 6 to 8 inches.
Okay.
And then the depth is all structurally designed.
I didn't know how high, I didn't look at how high is this wall going to be? That's what I'm concerned
Well,
about.
let me look to tell you correctly.
It's going to vary from front to back, I'm assuming?
It is, yeah. There's a good bit of grade change between the two properties there.
I should have looked at it myself. I didn't look at it before.
Well, probably should have been more prepared
The
as well.
72 pages got to me, attachments.
Yeah, we're looking at 3 to between 3 and 6 feet. So I think
Okay,
6 to 7
that's great.
foot.
I was afraid it was going to be 10 or 15 feet tall.
No.
Okay, thank you.
What's behind the wall?
What's behind the wall?
Yeah, for drainage.
Well, it is a design-build wall. We do not have the final design incorporated in this. If I speak to typical sections for this type retaining wall, you would have a drainage layer, a 57 stone or a similar material,
Okay,
typically with an under drain at the bottom.
okay.
Now, again, that's not the exact design because it is design build.
You happy with that?
Yeah, I am.
Let's talk about the Kingston Pike egress for a second. We've got basically kind of a three-quarter situation where we're allowing left in, and right out. Is that correct?
It's a full access.
It's full access.
It's
So you can
full
go, you can go
access.
left out or right out.
If you're brave enough to go left out.
Yeah.
I've sat at that driveway before. There's a lot of traffic.
Mark, how come
not
we're
marked
not
that
dealing with any variances with this particular request? Is there grandfathering because the old mill
Yeah, it was
distributors?
grandfathered. I actually looked at this with the town attorney, and we talked about it. It's grandfathered in.
Without a DXL lane?
No, they're not showing a decel.
It's grandfathered in due to the fact, I mean, obviously it doesn't fall within the 30-month rule. It's because there's a curb cut already there, and we're trying not to disturb that curb cut that's currently in the TDOT right away.
Yeah, it's always been an access through there, a permanent access, and it was used during the grading, actually, too, as the access for when they were filling in the lot. And frankly, even, they don't have, and this is something Tom and I looked at, is there's only a limited amount of frontage on Kingston Pike. It's just a bad access, and there's no way to really make it better.
We can't deny them access. So, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I did ask them to look at trying to at least try to get this access maybe tied into this one so that the two at least were coming out at the same access point. That was an early comment. We looked at that at the staff developer meeting, a couple months ago.
So I guess what we're trying to do is just encourage right turns and discourage left turns without doing actually any obstructions in the design or construction.
That's correct. We've got pavement markings indicating a right turn onto Kingston Pike, but there's no physical improvements that are proposed to
Kinda like
force people
McDonald's.
to
He's saying that
turn
really
right
the issue
only.
is if you had physical improvements to do that, then you're rebuilding the whole curb cut that's already there. You're having to widen it, change the radius on both sides, and
Correct.
do some other things to try to. So what we have is we just have a bad situation. And
It is,
There's just
yeah.
not a whole lot we can do to make it better.
Yeah, and I really did look at that when I first looked at this site plan, and what options could we do to try to make it somewhat better.
At least the elevation change is better.
It's
than
better
the
than it-
Miller
yep.
Distributors building used to come out of that and it go straight up the incline.
Yep.
Trying
And-
to get on Kingston Pike, so at least that is better.
And TDOT may have some suggestions too. It hasn't been,
Right.
they're still reviewing it. But the radius is pretty tight, which is a good thing. And, it's a really, you couldn't even really get a good decel lane in there because of the space and the amount of frontage that they have. It's just a really bad
It'll keep
place to-
THP busy.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a better access than it used to be because the elevation has been brought up a lot. But that whole section, about a quarter-mile section of Kingston Pike through there, is exactly why we have access ordinances, because
Any time
it's
of day.
really bad. And
There's not a whole lot we can do about the billboard.
I mean, if
think-
you all have some suggestions you want them to incorporate, that's why it's before you. The staff doesn't always have all the answers. I mean, if you have something you want them to look at, then that can certainly be one of the things that you can.
We had the car wash put in the Excel lane.
There's an access point right next to it, I think.
Yeah.
It's very close.
There's not a lot of room.
Yeah, there's not much.
There's not
I mean,
much
maybe
room.
there's
Oh, it's back a good ways before you get
80,
to that.
maybe there's 100 feet,
yeah.
120 feet maybe?
Yeah, there's at
There's-
least that much.
But there's sidewalk there that would have to be,
Yeah,
Yeah,
there is
there is a
existing
sidewalk.
sidewalk
so
along
that would have to
Kingston
be
Pike.
rerouted. Can we require a right turn only sign, like, if this reminds me of getting out of McDonald's and
It does.
Firestone.
It's just the honor system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, but most people
What you're
get
comfortable with.
shamed into making a right when they're trying to make a left out of McDonald's because people behind them get annoyed.
I know.
Yeah, the difference is that people coming down through there are going at a pretty good rate of speed.
Yes, they are.
Faster than in front of McDonald's.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
You're actually coming down the hill.
yep.
yeah, I agree.
We haven't spent any time on the billboard. Can we do any horse trading on the billboard, or is that ship already sailed?
Well, I've talked with the town attorney about that, and probably not with this site plan. Yeah, there's not really,
So we're stuck with the billboard.
yeah,
Unless
unless
ask
they
for
wanted
variance.
to.
Well, they're not, I don't think they're asking for a
No,
variance.
they're not.
Will TDOT, could TDOT potentially require something like a decel line? Would they come out back with something like that?
We've
Well-
received preliminary approval from TDOT already.
Okay.
They did give you preliminary approval?
Yes.
I mean, honestly, it'd be best if you made the access a right in, right out, and you had it kind of,
Should be a lot safer.
set up that way, because really, there's only a few times of the day anybody really ought to try to even turn to go east. It's really not good. And that can be something y'all can make as a subject to, that it needs to be a right in, right out.
If you do make it a right in, right out only, then you prohibit left in into the site.
And they have
which
a
would
left turn there.
Most likely be a deal killer for my client.
There is a turn lane, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there
That's
is a
permanent left
Good.
turn.
double left
You're
turn.
There's a
saying
turn
building
lane, but
that-
there's a lot of driveways through there, and there's gonna be a lot of opportunities for conflict in that center turn lane.
Yeah, sure is.
I mean,
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Well, that one, the building right next to it is that turn in is enter only.
Yeah.
It is not an exit, and the way they have the parking lot, the front of that parking lot is diagonal parking, so it encourages you to come in, and that's not how you exit. You exit further down.
Further west, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So any conflict would probably, would be, are you turning left into that, or are you turning left into the, I'm concerned about this, that, this is a business. And we already allow this type of access on Kingston Pike elsewhere. Although, then you are correct that people are driving pretty fast in this area.
This one is something, again, that Tom and I talked about. It has a limited amount of frontage, so even if you move the access somewhere else, it's not going to be that much safer, because they just don't have a lot of frontage, unlike the tract on Outlet Drive that we looked at a couple of months ago. They had a lot of frontage and a lot of options. They really don't have a lot of options here to do anything, and so I don't know. But I definitely agree that I'm very concerned about the access too. It's just a bad section of Kingston Pike through there in general. There's just a lot of conflicts. So whatever y'all are comfortable recommending, that's up to you all. I think that's your role and responsibility representing the community. If you think something needs to be looked at, then I think that is certainly reasonable for y'all to include that as in your subject twos or your conditions.
Is it possible to have a flashing light as a car enters? Never mind, it's not gonna work.
Anywhere else, it wouldn't be a big deal, but that right there, that's,
Yeah.
You know, on Grigsby Chapel by the church, as you're approaching the Catholic church area, there's a flashing light when cars want to come out onto it. I'm just wondering if there's some way to have something that
Warns
signals,
people.
warning of something, there's a
Car
car
coming out.
whether it turns left or right. It's a bad spot for even to turn right.
I don't know if we can do that on state highway.
I'm just asking the questions here, but I can't?
I'm not sure.
You would have to go through.
No, not being right.
No,
Yeah,
well,
I don't think so either. I don't know. Obviously, you're right, doesn't have to be authorized through TDOT, and the town engineer need to obviously evaluate that, see
Yeah.
whether that.
I don't know we can do that tonight.
I mean, really, frankly, on any of those uses, when I leave the car wash, for example, I'd have to really watch it, because it's just not a good, I mean, it's just, you gotta the cars are going pretty fast, and,
And that's if you're
Yeah.
turning west.
yeah, oh, I'm just talking about west. I wouldn't
Yeah.
even try to go
Oh, I
east.
wouldn't
That'd
either.
be-
No way.
Is the tenant not concerned?
I can't speak to their concerns.
That's fair.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask if any of the commissioners have any more questions, suggestions.
I do.
Commissioner
Jeff.
Devlin, please,
Thanks.
please.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but code does not currently require a sprinkler system for that tire shop, correct?
No, not because of its size, yeah.
Right. Access is terrible for fire trucks down there,
that's
especially
an
with that,
understatement.
with that stick out. I mean, it is what it is. It's 24 feet, if I'm reading it correctly. It's not impossible, but if it's on fire, you're not getting anywhere near it. So, it's just a comment more than a.
Is there enough room for a
than a need
turnaround
For a
down there?
change. No, you'd have to just back all the way out.
We
The
don't,
access is terrible.
we don't allow backing out.
We have modeled fire truck turnaround. The dumpster enclosure is purposely set back further
Right
away
here.
from the access drive than we would typically do to allow for a fire truck to get to the dead end, back towards the dumpster enclosure, and then be able to pull out facing forward.
Back out.
Are big fire trucks?
No, I see what you're saying. As far as pulling out after a response, yeah,
Right.
I mean, we can 6-point it all day long. We can get out straight onto Kingston Pike. Just in general, trying to access the tire shop in particular is the issue. But anything's, it's not like we don't deal with it in other ways all the time. It's just making the point. Better for the sprinkler.
Yeah, it would. You didn't even have to deal with it.
Anybody else have anything they want to add? Ms. Murphy, do you have any questions for the planning commission? Do you have any more comments, anything you'd like to add?
All I'll say is that I know that Express Oil Change is very excited to be in the town of Farragut. This was a very complicated site. We've worked through many iterations to get this particular piece of property to work at their direction because of their excitement to be here.
Well, thank you, I appreciate your time, your presentation.
And I can leave these boards if you want them.
Does anybody else need to look at the building materials?
I don't have any place to
Okay.
put them.
You can put them in Mark's office.
No,
Well, I think,
I
we've
built a doghouse with the last group that I had.
because I think we've had a rather robust discussion, I'd like to have a roll call on this particular agenda item. So,
Okay. Me to start.
call roll. Mark?
Yep. Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Pinchuk,
Yes.
Commissioner Devlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Russ,
Yes.
Mayor Williams,
No.
Vice Mayor Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers.
Yes.
Passes 7-1.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for taking a roll call. With a motion, second on the floor, voted, let the record show that agenda item number 5, approval of site plan for Express Oil Change and Tire Engineers Development is approved with a vote of 7 yes, 1 no. Thank you all. Thank you. Agenda item number 6, discussion and public hearing on approval of a site plan amendment request to leave the section of retaining wall not visible from Kingston Pike as plain block in association with the Dogtopia of Farragut, located at 12924 Kingston Pike. Urban engineering applicant.
Yeah, this request is to, basically at Dogtopia, which is out west Kingston Pike, just to the west of Christ Covenant Church over here. And the Mormon temple site is to the west of this site. The site plan was approved a few months ago through the Planning Commission. There's some retaining walls associated with the site. And they're asking that basically the portion of retaining walls that wouldn't be visible from Kingston Pike, which is the areas shown in yellow on this image through here, be left as just plain concrete block. And then the brown areas that would be visible from Kingston Pike would have the same veneer as the dumpster enclosure and portions of the building, which is a stone veneer similar to this. From a staff's perspective, we would not be in favor of just leaving it plain. I think at a minimum, the areas that aren't visible from Kingston Pike need to be painted in some kind of earth tone or something that would blend in. 'Cause I think it might, establish kind of some kind of action that we, might not want in another location. But if we've already had an action here, it might come back, to be something that would be difficult to change. So I think they need to do some kind of treatment to that portion. Yeah, I don't know that they need to put the stone veneer on it because there's kind of a really dense drainage way through here. So it really, especially not in the winter, in any other time of the year, this is going to be very difficult to see even from the adjacent property, and definitely not from Kingston Pike. Because the Mormon site kind of wraps around the site to the north, and it's wooded through their eastern portion of their site. So this is pretty hard to see, but I think at a minimum, from a staff's perspective, they need to at least paint that section to keep it some kind of color that kind of blends in with its surroundings. It may be a compromise in this case because I do understand that putting stone veneer on that section and it really not being visible from most any direction, that is a significant cost. So, but that's basically what they're requesting and what the staff's position is on that. If y'all have any questions, I'll try to answer those. The applicant is here if you have questions for the applicant.
All right, thank you, Mark. And before we move on to discussion and open up for the applicant, we'll need a motion in a second. Do you have a motion on the floor?
Motion to approve with the recommendation from plant staff. Or staff.
Second.
Mark, do you have anybody signed up for this?
No, sir.
All right. I'll ask now if we do have a representative from the applicant, if you could come up and answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Jeremiah Webb, 6812 Sherwood Drive.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And I'll just open it up to the planning commission. Do you guys have any quick questions for the applicant or for Mark?
Well, the only comment I have is I agree with Mark, is I went over to the parking lot next door, and for probably 5 months out of the year, that wall was fairly visible from the church parking lot over there. Very visible, actually. Summertime, you wouldn't be able to see it at all. But so I think a good compromise is what the staff is suggesting, to give it some color and protection so it doesn't look like an unfinished project back there. That would be that's why I would recommend approving what the staff is recommending.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Green.
I agree.
Commissioner Devlin?
Pass.
Commissioner Myers?
I kind of have mixed emotions on painting the block, and that's just from personal experience of years later, the paint peeling off the painted block. It is hard to paint block and to make it last. I do like the intent of the color blending in better with whatever the veneer is on the rest of the block and trying to de-emphasize the wall from the church parking lot. I guess if I can encourage you to any one thing is follow the instructions real carefully with the temperature and the humidity and everything when you're painting block, because it's it is very difficult to get paint to stick to block long-term.
That was my thought too, that it could chip off. And
Yeah, and I'd rather look at a one-color gray wall than a wall with a bunch of peeling off paint on it. So I do think generally the recommendation's a good recommendation. I just hope it lasts and doesn't beat you up on a bunch of maintenance.
I sprayed mine with it's kind of a mix of, it looks like a paint and sand and something, whatever they call that. And it's been there since 2000. Never chipped off.
Still looks good.
Maybe
Yeah.
something that's almost like
Yeah.
something that's just thicker than you can't use just a regular latex house paint.
No,
You've really got to use something that's designed for masonry applications.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant
Yeah,
in terms of
I
painting.
wanted to just clarify.
Because I was concerned about the painting too, the maintenance, and 5 years from now, it looked like crap, you know? And so, yeah, I think that's important to put whatever they put on it, that it's specifically designed for that kind of
I
material.
don't know if it's got concrete in it or sand or something,
Maybe a
but
little Portland cement.
it's
or
got something in it.
Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
you're talking. I can't remember the name of it, but there's some different products. It's just a thicker texture
Yeah,
than just regular old paint.
They sprayed it on there, and it's been there since 2000.
Yeah.
So it's-
Commissioner Pinchuk.
I agree with the staff recommendation. It needs to be treated with something, painted with something or whatever, covered with something.
Thank you, Ron. Vice Chairman Pavlin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forget who I am.
Louise? if you don't
There you go.
mind.
That works. That works just fine for me. How tall is this wall?
it's a good question.
It varies. It's pretty tall in places.
From Dogtopia or from the parking
From,
lot?
Well,
On the parking lot side or the Dogtopia?
It'll be taller from the
side?
parking lot side because it grades down towards that. It's actually a stream.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we, I know that we're talking about paint, would some plantings in front of that retaining wall, would it undermine the, or could you plant it
Depends on how
because
close we
there's,
put it. I don't know how much space there is.
Well, it
We're
does
getting
look like
pretty
there's a sewer.
close to the,
There's a sewer easement back there, and you don't want to be able to, you don't want to necessarily be planting on top of that sewer easement either.
even shrubs?
You can at your own risk, but if First Utility wanted to go in there and.
Pull everything, they could pull everything
And
out.
they have the rights to wipe it out, and they don't necessarily have to put it back. They probably would, but they don't have to.
I guess what I'm asking is if you put plantings in there and then the wall for some odd reason starts chipping, by that time the plantings will be mature and be hiding the wall, but
Well, keep in mind, you're still kind of dealing with the winter-summer thing,
Yes.
unless he puts
Yeah.
evergreens. And
Well, that's
you don't
what I
want to
do.
put Leland's in there. Leland's will
No,
outgrow
no.
that spot in 10 years.
yeah, I mean,
So-
some kind of shrub that's.
Yeah, maybe
I'm
hollies
just
or
curious,
viburnum
yeah,
or,
if
you know,
that's
something that's.
possible. I don't know what the rest of planning commission, I mean, if you're comfortable with, you think that this, whatever treatment that you put on that wall is has longevity, but your concern, Commissioner Myers, well taken, it starts looking unattractive in the wintertime. There's enough people in that parking lot are gonna see it. I'm fine with the staff's recommendation. I was just throwing out an idea for a way to cover it, but.
There may be a subject too, could be it has to be a paint that's specific to that type of material. And that could be a
We
requirement.
have a subject too that has to be approved by staff. Whatever it is, has to come back to you.
Well, yeah, and I'm not an expert.
Well, I
on
mean,
that.
the staff can't be held responsible for it if it doesn't last, but at the end of the day, it just needs to be something that's designed for,
Yeah.
exterior CMU applications.
Yeah.
Commissioner Green, are you willing to amend your, take a friendly amendment to your motion to have a subject to that the paint that they use is specifically for concrete block?
Yeah, we can do that. Yes, I amend my motion.
Okay.
There are lots of coatings out there that are designed specifically for concrete that last 30 years. They're expensive, they're really expensive coatings. But,
kind of what I was trying
but
to
they
avoid.
make, they're paint, they're
Yeah.
paint. And I think they're similar to the kind of thing that you get for your garage that go on the floor, the epoxy type thing. It's a similar thick coating like that. So I think what we're looking at is something that's going to be durable. And it's like we just said, designed for concrete application exterior. So
Do y'all have a color preference on that?
Well,
Natural tolerance.
what's the veneer of that, the part of the wall that is kind of exposed to the east?
Or do you know? I don't
Is
even
that
recall.
like a
It's been
thin
so long.
stone or a brick or?
No, it's thin stone. I was just thinking a brown or a beige or something.
Well, that's kind of what I'm, that's
would
kind of what
blend.
I'm.
Probably multi-tone of some kind.
Yeah.
I don't think we went completely solid on the stone colors.
Well, what I would do is I'd,
Just pick something that's
I'd pick
already in
one of
there.
those earth tones, a brown or a tan,
Yeah.
out of your stone palette.
Yeah.
And then just kind of go with that color.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I think we
I
were
think,
leaning towards a tan or beige of some
Yeah, I think
sort
that's fine.
if we have
Okay,
to paint it.
yeah, I think that makes sense. It'd blend in better with the surroundings. Yeah.
Do we have to
So
amend?
who's the he
Well,
amended it, who
first-
seconded?
Yeah, the
Noah
Commissioner agreed.
Yeah,
seconded it.
I'll amend my second as well.
Are we satisfied with that amended motion? To
Yeah,
to provide a masonry grade exterior paint?
Paint that's specific to the
Jeremiah,
masonry.
do you have any, do
Yes,
you
it
have
was
any
seconded.
reservations or concerns about the recommendations that we're making now?
I mean, I haven't viewed it from the other parking lot, but my kind of thought was it is a thickly dense wooded area there. I don't know if that's the outer reaches of the parking lot or up close where most people are actually parking. To me, it just seems like green space in the outer reaches of the parking lot, and I'm pretty much painting the wall for the fish and the birds and the salamanders that frequent the stream bed. But, if I can avoid covering it with the brick veneer, I've already partially won. So that was our main concern, was just defraying the cost of covering both sides with a brick and stone veneer. So certainly paint is a logical compromise, but
Sure.
in my head, even that's still kind of going a little above and beyond. But
I understand.
like I said, I didn't view it from the same standpoint that he did earlier today. So if that's his opinion, then that's.
But to be honest, I think that leaving it without any covering on it probably wouldn't have made it through tonight.
Okay.
And we obviously don't want to hold up your progress.
Yeah,
on the
we just want to
project
keep
as well.
moving.
And Jeremiah, to let you know that that's consistent with what we've asked other folks to do for many years.
Yeah, and I understand
So
you
we're
guys
not
have the
asking it-
precedent aspect of it too.
Right,
So I don't
so
want to.
exactly.
I don't want to be the one that ruins it for the town.
Yeah, we had a large soil nail wall that they spent a lot of money on that one to make
Oh,
it
yeah.
look,
It's
got
to
some
make it
kind of
look
coating
good,
on
and it turned out good, so, yeah.
Is that done yet?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's been finished.
Seems like it took a few years for that. Jeremiah, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. So we do have an amended motion on the floor.
Did you second that?
I did.
Noah
Yeah.
seconded that. So with amended motion, it's been seconded on the floor. I ask if the motion stands as presented. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any noes? No noes. Let the record show that the approval of the site plan amendment request to leave the section of retaining wall not visible from Kingston Pike as plain block in association with Dogtopia is approved with subject to masonry grade exterior paint. Good? Agenda item number 7, discussion and public hearing on approval of variance of 350 feet from the distance between driveways requirement for arterial streets and the driveways and other access ways ordinance for proposed access associated with a duplex at 1114 North Campbell Station Road. Oleg Zayats, applicant.
Yes, this agenda item is a little bit unusual, and I'll give you a little background on it. This house will be in Knox County, and only fairly recently, through looking into some annexations and corporate boundary matters, we discovered that originally we thought the town's boundary only went to the center line of North Campbell Station Road, but we discovered that it goes all the way across the entire right-of-way. And so that means that access onto this section of North Campbell Station Road is required to come through the town, through the town. And so that's why this particular request is before you. The access in question that they would like to do is this location here. Here's the proposed duplex envelope. This is Fretz Road, North Campbell Station. proposed access is here. There's an existing access here, and there's also an existing access here. Since North Campbell Station Road is a minor arterial, new accesses to meet the town's requirements have to be 400 feet apart. This access is from nearest point of curb to nearest point is 50 feet. So it's a 350-foot variance that they would be requesting. Prior to the town's involvement in access, there was a final plat that was approved through Knox County for what was referred to as Campbell Park Subdivision Phase 2. There's a subdivision that was approved through the county just to the east of this. That was Campbell Park. And it's a little cul-de-sac that comes in roughly through here and goes back to the northeast. Then there were 3 additional lots that were platted along North Campbell Station Road that became Campbell Park Phase 2. And with that plat, access was provided to the 3 lots through 2 locations. And there's actually a plat note that says only 2 access points are basically permitted for these 3 lots. So that was established by the county through this plat. Lot 11, which is the applicant's lot, by the plat, approval is required to access where Lot 10's access is currently. So it's a shared access, which in the town is very common on these kinds of roads. We do it all the time. I can't really speak to why there's 2 existing accesses along that section of North Campbell Station Road. I don't think we would have approved it like that, but it is what it is. And then, you know, to kind of complicate matters a little further, you know, there is a turn lane that the county is going to be starting soon, southbound on Fretz Road, but it's going to be a turn lane on North Campbell Station. So the utilities have had to move back off of the road to accommodate this project, and one of the things that's happened is the distribution line pole, which was closer to Kingston or Campbell Station here, it's moved back a few feet, and then the guy wire, which complicates the cross access a little bit for this lot. They can still get around it, and that's the staff's position on this. But it is kind of it's a messy situation, unfortunately, that we're kind of coming in at the 11th hour to deal with. And I feel for the applicant on this, but, you know, when you look at a variance, any variance, and I've talked with the town attorney about this, you have to have good grounds for it. And in this case, if you don't grant a variance, basically the applicant wouldn't have any access if you didn't approve some kind of variance. But that's not the case here. They had a plat that was provided through the county, and the access was established through that plat, and it was specific for this lot. So, you know, from the staff's position, we could not support a 3rd access because it would aggravate an already non-complying situation, and it would violate the plat that was approved through Knox County because it specifically says there's only 2 access points that would be allowed for these 3 lots. If the owner could somehow work out something with the 2 property owners to the east to remove their access points on North Campbell Station and tie in to his access point, which actually is, of the 3 lots, would be the best place to go because it lines up with Fretz Road. And it's going to be hard for these 2 homeowners to get out when this turn lane is in because there's going to be a limited amount of time that they'll be able to go kind of east on North Campbell Station. They'll probably have to turn and go west and turn around, maybe at Ridgeland and come back through if they're going eastbound. So ideally, yes, his access makes the most sense, but it would only be conditioned on the removal of the two other accesses that are really close together that were approved through the county with the plat that I mentioned earlier. So that's kind of the situation we're in. We don't feel like there's a warrant for a variance in this case because the applicant does have access, and it was specifically provided for with the plat. So, you know, we find it hard to find grounds for supporting a variance in this case. And it's not, you know, I'm certainly sympathetic to the applicant, and I understand he's kind of coming in on a bad situation as well, but this would just make an already non-complying situation worse from the staff's perspective. So that's kind of an overview of this item, and if you all have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Mark, do you have anybody signed up on this item?
No, sir. Just the applicant.
All right,
I got a question, Mark.
Okay.
Those two other lots, is there any house on them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's
houses
houses
on
and
it
two
right this moment?
existing accesses. And then there's the access to the subdivision just right here. So you got 3 accesses within probably
those
400
houses are-
feet.
Houses are fairly new, probably within the last year or two.
I think 18 maybe.
Yeah.
I know which one. I know which ones they are now.
Two new
Yeah.
side by sides.
I've got a question too. Can you go back to the other drawing?
This one?
Exactly where is that utility pole and guide wires? Where are we talking? Those
It's
are-
about right here.
Right there, okay.
I think right in that location. I mean, they can work around it. It's an inconvenience, but you can't get around it because he's going to have to come in and go over this way to access the existing access that it's intentionally wider. If you go out there, this access on lot 10 is wider, and that was set up to accommodate the access for
So,
this lot.
Are you I'm a little confused. Are you suggesting the other two residents go between the house and the utility pole, or between the utility pole and the road to get to?
No, they would go behind the
Behind
guy
it.
wire.
That's gonna
yeah,
be pretty close to that.
to the north
that
of the
house.
guy wire. Yeah.
Before we move on with any other questions, I believe we have the applicant up here. If you don't mind, please, for the record, give us your name and your address.
Yes, sir. Oleg Zayats, 2000 Panoramic Way, apartment 203, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37932.
Okay, thank you, Oleg, and now I'll open it up for any.
We need a motion.
We haven't done a motion yet.
So we're going to do a motion on the original application for a variance of 350 feet distance between driveways requirement for arterial streets and driveways and other access ways and ordinance for access associated with the North Campbell Station Road property in question. Do we have a motion on the floor?
I'm going to motion to deny the variance request.
Second.
With a motion to deny, I'll ask,
We're going to discuss it.
we'll open up for discussion, and then we'll take a vote on it, probably a roll call vote on this
Yes, sir.
particular item. I'll open that up now. I'm going to go individually. Commissioner Pinchuk, do you have any other questions for the applicant or Mark?
Well, I do have a couple questions. First of all, have the other two residents been informed? What discussions have you had with them?
Yes, sir.
Are any of them here?
I know. So we bought this property from Houston Homes, and they definitely have a
Can you speak
reputation.
up just a little bit?
We bought this property from Houston Homes, and they have a reputation. They flee town for certain reasons. And so when we looked at that property, it was a great property. It already has driveway accesses to it, but because there was an old mobile home that was on it. So when we bought the property, it looked great. It looked like it had a driveway access, utilities, and everything. But when it came to it, the plat map showed that we have to share the driveway. I went and talked to the neighbor. He said, we knew that when we bought the house, but they never disclosed it to us. When I talked to the neighbors about joining our driveways, they denied it. They said, we don't want to lose direct access to North Campbell Station Road. I think they fear that it's going to devalue their house to some extent, so they want to keep their driveway accesses. I did speak to the neighbors about it, and it was very, very stubborn people to talk to.
They're very what?
Stubborn.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you don't mind, I can tell you a backstory of this property real quick. I kind of prepared a speech, so it'll kind of go to waste if I.
Sure, let's hear it.
Thank you all for being here today and for sacrificing your time to hear me out. A little history of myself and the backstory of this property. My family migrated from Ukraine about 27 years ago, and I grew up in West Knoxville. I got married 3.5 years ago to my beautiful wife, who is also in the medical field. When we got married, we moved into an apartment in Hardin Valley, and currently at $1,600 a month, plus utilities, which is just one-bedroom apartment. As caregivers for our parents, we wanted to find a house close to them, but this economy and the crazy house market, it was not a feasible option. We started looking for land to build on, and so that we could get out of apartment living and move our parents in with us. That is when we came across this property that was sold by Houston Home. When we looked at this the first time, it was a great property. Later, we figured out that the direct driveway access that's seen in the picture is from an old mobile home, and it used to be on that property. When the realtor, and I should mention that she worked for Houston Home, showed us the property, she never disclosed that per the plat map we are to share a driveway with a neighbor. We later found out that they had quite the reputation here in town, and there were reasons for fleeing. We looked at this property from every angle and came to a conclusion that it would be best to build a duplex for ourselves and have our parents live next door so they could continue living an independent lifestyle. This duplex will serve my family as a permanent residence and not an investment property. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom duplex, bricked. It's more than enough for our family and quite an upgrade from an overpriced apartment. In order to fit a duplex on it, I had to rezone the entire subdivision. I can proudly say I tried to do everything the right way. I took the courtesy and collected signatures from every neighbor before proceeding. As we continued our planning process, we found out that Knox County plans to widen North Campbell Station Road. The increased right-of-way for improvements to the intersection of Campbell Station Road and Fritz Road and the associated utilities relocation make it nearly impossible to connect the platted joint driveway to the east. Additionally, the new turn lane for Fritz Road will make it nearly impossible to turn left from the shared driveway. With the relocation of the utility pole and the guide wire, along with the future installments of the turn lane, I was inclined to reach out to the engineering department of the town of Farragut and request a driveway permit. I met with them multiple times pleading my case, and I was told, and I quote, "Someone dropped a bomb here," and allowed driveway access on lots 9 and 10 to be installed. They told me, "We do not see a problem giving you a driveway permit. It would be a better option, but these 2 accesses have to be closed off," end quote. Because of someone's lack of knowledge or understanding of the obstacles that we face now, I am to sacrifice the safety of my family in having a direct, safe driveway access on my own. This access would be much safer entrance and exit than having a shared driveway. I am more inclined to believe that the shared driveway poses a bigger hazard when having to pull out in the middle of the turning lane. When I reached out to the utility engineer, he created a group email and included Knox County, LCUB, and the engineers at Farragut, and I submitted this screenshot, but unfortunately it never made it to this meeting. He voiced a concern and kindly asked Knox County and Farragut to come to consensus and possibly allow me a direct driveway access. He stated, and I quote, "LCUB would prefer not to incur the cost of relocating the pole a second time if an amicable driveway solution can be found. Even if we move the pole the second time, I will still be faced with an impossible situation of turning left with a new lane installment. So today, I humbly request you all to look at it from a different perspective and consider the safety of my family as you make this decision." With the assistance of AI, I found the probability of all 3 neighbors and 6 vehicles coming and going at the same time, it's only 3%. I believe it's not deemed as a hazardous situation. I'm not asking for a continuation of a busy Fritz Road, just a driveway access that will service 2 vehicles with a safe access point at an intersection. Thank you kindly. And also, I'd like to add, I spoke with Knox County on Tuesday before the snowstorm hit, and I spoke with Amanda Perkey, and she said that she got Jim and Steve with traffic engineering on board, and they're in the works of issuing a statement regarding the situation. Due to the road project, they said that the shared access is no longer a viable solution for this lot, and they partially feel at fault for this hardship that has created, so I'm not sure if they have reached out to you, Mark, yet or not. The problem is with this lot is if you look at this graph, this is my property, and this is a bidding map that Knox County had. They have 2 driveway accesses on it. So every utility person that comes in, they need to relocate a utility pole or put a sewer in. They put it between the 2 houses because they all think that I have driveway accesses here. And this is where the issues has happened. That's why they put all those poles and the sewers and everything between the 2 houses, because nobody had any idea that I have to share a driveway access with the neighbor. So it's just a hard situation. We're just making lemonade out of the lemons that we got. And just, I kindly ask that you consider the safety of my family when I need to, pull out left or right. It'd be so much safer and easier at that intersection than having to pull out at a turn lane with the neighbor property. And I talked to Knox County, and they said if I get a permit from Farragut, they can remove the shared driveway from the plat map, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Oleg.
Yep.
Well, commissioners, there's a whole lot going on here with that, obviously. It seems pretty cut and dry, but I do want to open it up to the other commissioners. I want to start off, though, is it with the expansion, or with the widening of Campbell Station Road, is there any plans down the road or discussion about signalizing that intersection with the growth along Fretz?
Not that I'm aware of.
No? Okay. I'll open it up to the other commissioners. I'll start down here with Commissioner Devlin.
Mark, how does it work? Is he able to force the issue to share the driveway?
He has platted right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, what was the plan was from the county's plat was for whoever built on this lot
Yeah.
could share this. So unfortunately, these two, really I know what I would have probably done with this, but anyway, it's different. But it is what it is. There's access here in this one. And then just right down the street is the main subdivision's access. It's a small subdivision, but there's probably nothing that he can do to make them get rid of their access to, because really where he's proposing his just would be the best place, but it would be
Yeah, and
conditioned on the other two connecting to him,
I think my thought is, well, it'd be the best of the 3 driveways. I mean, like, what is it really adding by letting them have it? Like, what huge issue is it adding to? I mean, I think we all agree that maybe this was messed up to begin with, and now, like you said, we're coming in at the 11th hour. It just feels.
I think the question
feels a
is
little
just
punitive.
whether, when somebody's requesting a variance, we just need to be able to substantiate that. And I'm not sure from staff's perspective what threshold this would meet as a hardship. I mean, it's an inconvenience, no doubt about it, and it is a unfortunate situation that we didn't really have any input on it. But I don't really know what grounds the variance he would have for a variance, because there was specifically thought out access for this lot, and it was reflected on the plat, and that was the intention.
I think that was the intention before
That was
they
the
moved the
intention.
utility poles and before they had plans to widen the road. Then that
The
made sense.
The utility pole thing makes total sense. I mean, if you've been out there, you can see it was a, dirt circle driveway, half circle that was, for a trailer built.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to Knox County, they said the same thing. They said before we had any plans and the utility, that made sense. But now with the utility being pushed back closer to the house and the widening of the road and putting the turn signal in, that just doesn't make any sense for you to share the driveway. So
That's all I've got.
Okay.
Commissioner Myers?
I do have an observation that I'd like to share with the rest of the commission. So I'm looking at a historical aerial photograph from 2016. And that's a year prior to when the plat was prepared. And there's always been a small lot there. And in 2016, there was a single wide mobile home with a circle driveway that is exactly where the old gravel is that we're seeing up on the screen right there. I do believe that there is a hardship here, and I think the hardship is that the utilities have been relocated since Knox County required the shared access. And I think by pushing the utilities further to the outside of the right-of-way, that creates the hardship, so we're not setting a precedent that, that would, in my mind, allow and grant a variance for the applicant to be able to locate his driveway, quite frankly, in a better location, being that it would line up with Fretz Road. Again, this is not dissimilar to the tire store and the oil change that we dealt with earlier. In an ideal world, all three of these, and they're small lots. I mean, the sum total of all three lots is only about a half of an acre. But in an ideal situation, they would all share one access. Well, they don't. The access point, which Knox County was trying to, who required it to be shared back in, I think that when that plat was signed was back in 2017, which
Yes.
is a year after the aerial photograph that I'm looking at when the old mobile home was removed and the circle driveway was then somewhat abandoned. I don't see any difference than this scenario as the Kingston Pike scenario we dealt with a couple of agenda items ago. So, quite frankly, I don't think I would support this going back to the circle driveway, but I do think I would support letting the applicant have a single access, a sole exclusive access on his lot that lines up with Fretz Road.
Mainly because conditions have changed since that plat
That's exactly
that provided for. So I
And
think that's
that
a,
creates the hardship.
yeah, okay. That's a good point.
Commissioner Pinchot?
I like what Commissioner Myers just said. I would like to find an answer for you. I think lining up with Fritz Road is what we're trying to do anyways. So I think the two current residences are still going to have the issue they've been having all along. There's nothing we can do about that. So I'm kind of in agreement to go along with letting them have the variance. That's my thoughts right now.
Thank you, Ron. Commissioner Green?
No comment.
Louise?
First, I'm going to say this because I'm just so irritated, and I'm irritated for you. This is a complete and utter lack of planning on Knox County's parts. And it's angering that they were the ones that platted these two accesses to 112 and 1110, and then have the utilities moved when this person needs to access that driveway. This is what frustrates residents in Knox County, because there is no planning. There's 163 feet between the Campbell Park Lane and 1110 North Campbell Station Road. This is an arterial. It's always been an arterial. Do they not have distances between driveways for arterials? Not even something basic as that? It's so, this whole situation is frustrating. And the people at the 110, the 10 and 12 are going, once they get this left turn lane, which was also an issue because they were already building on Fretz Road. They knew it was coming on Fretz Road because they had it in their land use plan, their growth policy map. That's a planned growth area. They knew they were putting in at 5 units an acre. They love putting in 5 units an acre. That's what forced the hand, and we had to go back and tell them, you either build a Fretz Road left turn lane or we're going to sue you, because they were going to let that traffic back up. Again, another lack of planning on Knox County's part to accommodate off-site, making off-site recommendations. Hey, you're putting all this traffic on here, and the developers down there aren't paying a dime for this left turn lane. They came to us and said, we'll contribute if you'll do the rest of it. Why should we do the rest of it? In town of Farragut, we required them to do off-site plans because we're allowed to do that, and Knox County's allowed to do that, and they don't do it. And so we're in this crappy situation. You're in this crappy situation because of one bad decision after another, after another, after another. And this is why the town of Farragut exists. So I have to agree with I feel comfortable that we are not setting a precedence to continue to do this bad planning if this comes up again somewhere, that this is in fact a hardship. The best place for a location for you is where you are. But if we're going to do this, the people at 1112 and 1110 are going to suffer when this Fretz Road left turn lane is put in. So I want it marked in the plat that if they decide, hey, I want to have access here because I can get out here, we have to put that in the plat.
I agree, that's what I was gonna say.
1112 and 1110 finally realize
That's
this is
right.
not safe and we need a better access point, then it's a platted easement so they can reroute their driveways to the driveway that is put in here. That's the only way I can approve this, is if that.
Honestly, my plan all along was, because part of his driveway is on my property, my plan was if there's any way I could still connect mine to allow, because I like him, he's a good neighbor. If when it gets busy traffic, he could get out through my driveway, if
I would
at all
want
possible.
both
yeah.
of them if they're interested. I know they both have legal rights, and you're not going to change
Yeah.
that, and they want their own access. But soon enough, they're not going to have the
gonna be hard.
ability to get out between the road and the turn lane. It's going to be.
Let me ask you, if they wanted to do that, who would pay for that? Would that be individually, or?
The plat change would.
Yeah, when you get plat changed.
Well, you're gonna have to have the plat changed no matter what.
Yeah, you'd have to have that
And so,
amended
and
anyway.
You had mentioned that Knox County probably won't burden that. You're probably, the easiest thing to do, to go back to the surveyor that Richard Bailey, who did this one, who's at least prepared this for you, and he could then do the plat. You can deal with Knox County with that. I think it'd be great for your neighbors to participate in this. I don't necessarily think we should force you to try to make your neighbors do something.
Yeah.
But to answer your question is, if your neighbors wanted to participate, the cost would be their burden, not your
So
burden.
it'd be all three of us having to create the road,
Yeah,
the driveway.
if you so desire, but I've dealt with a lot of neighbors over the years, and sometimes you just have uncooperative neighbors. They just, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And they may not know it until a year or two down the road, and they realize, wow, we really are in a mess here. And what Louise said, these poor Knox County decisions are the reason why this town was incorporated 45 years ago.
Yeah.
Is because we didn't like the decisions that Knox County kept on making time and time again.
still making them.
And we wanted to be the captain of our own ship.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we haven't made mistakes.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, our staff would have known better than to allow something like this to slide through.
Yeah.
So I think where we are, we could either let the motion, and depending on where we want to go with this, we could let the motion second die. We could call the question, and then if it fails, then we could then issue another motion. But that's.
I would like to, since I made the original motion, I'm going to amend my motion to approve the access with the caveat that the plat recognizes, allows for future connection from 1112 and 1110, if they're so inclined. And 1110 might want to connect, and 1112 might. And they're not always, may not always be your neighbors. The next one's coming along. And another thing, if they go to sell their property and they can't sell it because nobody wants that crappy access, this is an option.
Could
So
they have an option to connect to the subdivision entrance? Because it's right next to them too.
That's not under our, the subdivisions in Knox
It
County.
doesn't look like that, because I'm looking at.
No, I don't think you could do.
I'm looking at a current
No.
aerial photograph. I don't think that would work. It
Yeah.
also does look like, based upon the most recent survey, Richard Bailey's survey, that the right-of-way has been widened through this area. And
Yeah,
so
it's about 90 feet.
And so the right-of-way may be so large in here that the neighbors might be able to access your driveway without ever actually crossing your property, which would then eliminate the need. I'm not a surveyor. I'm just making an observation after looking at a lot of 30 years of surveys, that it may eliminate the need for what Louise is saying, that you have to provide an easement for your neighbors. Again, those are some things that I think staff could look at, but you can see how much wider the right-of-way is to this western terminus at your property, and I'm sure Knox County did that in anticipation of widening Campbell Station Road at some point in the future.
Correct, yeah.
Oh,
But
no,
I'm
they
a-
did that recently because
Oh,
they had to
okay.
prepare for the Fretz Road
Okay.
widening, which
In-
is
for-
supposed to
okay.
be starting soon.
So it may be that.
You would have to
Now,
relocate.
again, you've
yeah.
got to work around, your neighbors would have to work around those same utilities.
Yeah, the poles, I
that
was
we're
to say,
calling
yeah.
a hardship for you.
Yeah.
There may not be just enough room. You know, you're only dealing with a 10,000 square foot lot.
Yeah.
And so by the time you get your structure in there and your front yard, you may not have anything left to be able to make those connections. But I think Louise's intent is absolutely a great intent. I'm just not sure
Well, we're
in
paving
practice
the
how
way,
it's going to work.
we're paving the way for the possibility.
Right, I agree.
If they turn around and realize, God forbid some accident happens and they realize, okay, this is untenable in the current, they have a plat note or something on the plat that protects their right to access this driveway.
Yeah, they want to get the plat changed anyway.
One
Yes.
other observation, and this is something that you, at some point in the future, you may want to address with LCUB. There are other guy wire, I know, your big obstacle is the guy wire. There are other guy wire systems that are more expensive than the traditional holdback systems that's on a 45. There are systems that come up on a 90 and then go over. LCUB is not going to want to pay for that themselves, but if all of a sudden you and your neighbors found yourself in a quandary someday and you're trying to make all this work, you could talk to the engineers at
There are
LCUB,
options, yeah.
you know, and I don't know how many thousands of dollars it is, but there are other ways to get that guy wire in to create a little bit more room for you.
And Knox
Okay.
County should consider footing that bill if that ever comes up.
Well, they should, but good luck with that.
I know.
Good luck
Well,
with that.
maybe we have enough commissioners coming on that are actually recognizing the awful mistakes.
Well, they didn't take the 2 poles down that were dead anyway. That's another problem they
Well,
have.
that may be, sometimes there's some low
That's
voltage fiber
LCUB
stuff on
though.
there, and those carriers, they just refuse to get off of them. And so sometimes you get these poles that are half cut off that are left for many years.
Yeah.
They're supposed to
See,
take
and that's-
these down.
Yeah, see, that's all either telephone cable, it could be fiber optic, and there's all sorts of random people that use our risers in the town of Farragut.
Oh, they-
Those aren't power lines on those lower poles. Those are-
See, in our
those are other
aesthetic
stuff.
plan that we adopted a few years ago, they're required to remove these.
Yeah, they're supposed to.
So,
Especially if they widen, they
Right.
might have to move it.
Oh, yeah, definitely when they widen it, somebody's gonna
Yeah.
take it out, probably with a track hoe.
Can we
kinda
make
like-
sure that we've got our hardship
Yeah, I
concerns?
agree.
Yeah, I think the hardship, and I
Documented.
understand that, I think that's a good point, is that basically the conditions have changed. The road widening project has happened since 2017's plat, thus has pushed back everything, and it's made the sharing and access and where they come out a less desirable location than where he's proposing.
I'd use harsher words than less
Less
desirable.
desirable.
If we're building minutes for this meeting,
Yeah, unsafe.
or even, I mean, the reality, I'm trying to find the word of obstacle, opposite of logistical, that you don't have the physics to make it work. And so I think it's more than just desirable. And again, I'm at a loss for the correct adjective tonight. But I do think there's a very legitimate hardship that has to do with the relocation of the utilities.
Okay.
Which
Space
maybe
restriction.
nearly insurmountable might be a words we use.
Well, I'd like to second the motion, amended
Before we
motion.
move on to that and address the amended,
I think Mayor Williams had the second on the
Oh,
original
he did
motion.
already?
before we move on to that,
Well,
though,
I
I
may
could
not be
give
able to amend it.
the Vice Mayor Meyer a chance to speak.
So I don't want to be the downer, and I sympathize with you tremendously. But I think we have to go back and revisit the point of having a variance. The variance is granted when someone doesn't have access to something, and you do have access to the road. It might not be desirable. I don't know if I would call it a hardship, because you do have access. And because there is access, I can't support the variance. I'm sorry.
You want the obstacles that it presents, the
Right
poles,
now,
the
you
got
still have-
wire.
You still have access to the road.
Where is his access to the road?
I mean, you said he still has
Well,
access.
it's through the plat,
Through the plat.
Yeah.
through the way it's, that's
Yeah.
true.
He
And that
still
was the
has-
staff's position in our
He
recommendation,
still
was
has access through
exactly
that
that.
driveway.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be different if you didn't have access to anything.
Yeah.
but,
Well,
you know,
in the
point of
photograph?
giving-
Yeah.
point
The
of giving a
obstacles are in the
variance
way
is-
of that access now with them pushing.
around
I said the
fiber optic
obstacles
or
of the
I can't
poles.
hear because of the other conversations. It's
I
not-
was saying that the obstacles, the telephone poles, the guide wire, the sewer cap there,
I'm not trying to convince you, I'm just showing you.
Yeah,
what he's
they're
talking
in the
about.
way
Yeah.
now
Right.
to
I mean, but the
connecting on
question is,
that.
does he have access, Mark, or does he not? through the
Yeah, I
street?
mean, he has access,
And so I
yes.
think we have to go back and say, what's the point of the
Yeah.
variance?
Yeah.
You know, on the Board of Zoning Appeals, we can only give a variance when someone didn't have access to property. Is that the same thing here? That you-
Yeah, I mean,
It's the
that's,
same concept.
unless there's something that is discovered, like Noah brought up, that, you know, you could maybe say as a change condition, that, you know, you had the original plat that provided the two access points, which, you know, the one, whether that made sense or not, but now that the conditions have changed since the plat that provided the access, that makes the cross-access that was originally intended in the plat less of a, untenable. I think that's their position.
Still has access.
My position is probably more like Commissioner Myers, is that I'm pretty strict about variances too. I think if they have access, and he does, I'm not sure that I would support a variance, but I think Noah and the other commissioners make a good point, because there has been a change in the conditions.
And the applicant didn't cause that
No,
change.
he didn't cause that
Something completely
change.
out of his control.
And I
So-
mean, I completely understand that. I mean, and it's unfortunate. But the question of the variance is, do you have access, yes or no? The answer is you do have access.
But
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
why I just kindly request, just think about the safety of my family.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
it's a duplex, people think it's gonna be, investment property. No, I mean, I'm just trying to get out of apartment living, $1,600 a month plus utilities. And, I want to be close
It's
to
a
my
matter that
parents.
people can have different positions on, that's for sure,
Yeah.
because
Well,
it's,
No, like,
it's,
you don't need a unanimous vote here, you just need a
yeah,
majority vote.
so I agree.
So what I'm going to do, because there isn't consensus, I'm going to withdraw my amendment and allow for a vote on the original motion, if somebody else wants to make it. I'd like to, so we'll go back to the original motion. Maybe I should just withdraw my amendment and my motion and start this all over.
The
again.
original motion.
I
Probably
think
so,
that's
just-
what I'm going to do.
You'd have to withdraw, exactly.
So just
So
one.
we have no motion.
One thing before I do that, to Vice Mayor Myers' point, he does have access. Is it untenable or simply inconvenient? Is a question. Is the other changes in conditions, does that outweigh is it untenable or inconvenient? And ultimately, we know that these access points that exist now are going to become untenable. Once the Fretz Road left turn lane is put in, those access points are going to be, they're just going to have to make a right out, which I suspect most of the time, they're going to be trying to make a left. So if we allow for this new access point, we at least open the door to allow for future connection. That's my thought process, but I'm going to withdraw both motions and let somebody else make a motion.
I'd like to offer a motion on the approval of variance of 350 feet from the distance between driveways requirement for arterial streets and the driveways and other access ways ordinances for a proposed access associated with a duplex at 1114 North Campbell Station Road.
Second.
Or with no subject.
Do you want to you want to add in there with the?
Yeah, I would like to give the staff, as part of my motion, some oversight with this, to try to come up with the proper language that would allow for the two neighbors on the east side, which is 1110 and 1112, at a future date to potentially tie in. Obviously, there's still other unknowns to be made known, but I do want to keep that door open with kind of the flavor that Louise has suggested earlier. And how you want to craft that in the minutes, I'll leave that up to you.
Your motion was to approve the variance. To approve the variance due to the change in the conditions since the plat was originally
That is
recorded.
due to the change to external conditions.
that has made the accesses that were shown on the plat
Untenable.
untenable
That
due
is
to the
correct.
turn lane
Yeah,
project.
that's the hardship that I'd like to see in the record.
Okay. And then the staff to work on language to get on the plat that somehow gives the other two lot owners the rights to be able to connect to lot 11 if they so chose in the
You
future.
may not, there may be enough right away you don't need it, but I just don't,
Let's make sure that.
I'm not sure.
you're
I'd
right.
like just to leave it open for that.
Well, it's still going to take that vertical tieback on the pole.
Well, that's true, based upon where some of those,
Yeah.
marks are. It looks like those are right up on the edge of the right of way, so.
Well, and he would have to build wherever he puts his house, he would have to build it so there's a potential for connection
Yeah,
on his property.
right.
I second the
Well-
motion that Commissioner Myers made.
I think Jeff already
Already
did.
did?
Yeah.
You did it?
He seconded
Yeah,
it.
because all three of those properties, at some point, that's where the access would be, what we're approving. It's probably inevitable, in my opinion.
Okay, Mark?
They're gonna want to come out directly across from Fred's.
Yeah, if they put delineators in the road, you're going to have a problem there anyway.
Okay, now,
So,
all
yeah,
right,
second.
I've got it. I think I got it.
Are we ready
Good
for a
enough.
roll call, or we have some more discussion on it?
It looks like discussion's closed, so Mark, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Pinchuk,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Meyer,
No.
Commissioner Russ,
Yes?
Mayor Williams,
Mayor Williams, yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Devlin.
Yes.
Passes 7-1. This does go to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, so they have the final say on this. So we'll be taking it to them probably for the March, one of the meetings in March. I'm not sure which one, but so.
Okay, Mark, let the record show the agenda item number 7, variance of 350 feet between driveways requirement for arterial streets in the driveway and other accessways ordinance for proposed access associated with duplex at 1114 North Campbell Station Road is approved with a vote of 7 yes and 1 no. Thank you, Owen.
Thank you, guys. God bless
Appreciate
you.
your presentation in time.
It's going to take a while to do that one.
We didn't make that easy.
47.
Have to watch the video on that one.
We don't ever want to revisit
we got
something
two
like
more.
this again.
2. Yeah, we got 8 and 9.
Well, we should be able to get through these.
Okay, we good?
Yeah,
Maybe
we're good.
We're going to go ahead and continue with the next two, if everybody's okay with that. Agenda item number 8, discussion and public hearing on a request to amend the text to the Farragut zoning ordinance in the PCD so that a proposed automobile-oriented use that has frontage on a major arterial street may have a drive-through under certain conditions. Kingston Pike Properties 2, LLC applicant.
Yeah, this item was discussed last month for workshop purposes. It involves the request to amend the language in the PCD district that currently requires automobile-oriented uses to be situated internal to a development. This amendment would not apply to the mixed-use town center. That is tied to a separate section of the C1 zoning district, so this is only for areas outside of the mixed-use town center. The applicant actually put together a lot of the language that's in Ordinance 25-03, and most of that language was taken from the mixed-use town center drive-through provisions that are intended to conceal drive-through lanes and kind of minimize their visibility. So all those conditions we kind of looked at last month at the workshop discussion, and I think the commission was pretty comfortable with that. This would only apply to a drive-through use that has frontage on a street classified as a major arterial, like Kingston Pike or Campbell Station Road, something like that. And then subject to the criteria that's mostly associated with menu boards for a drive-through. that were in the packet last time and then are reflected in ordinance 25-03. So the staff recommends approval of the resolution that recommends approval of this ordinance, resolution PC-25-02.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Mark, is there anybody signed up to speak to this issue?
No, sir.
Do we have a member of the applicant present? Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Daniel Smith, Kingston Lake Properties 2 LLC, 315 Train Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Hello, Daniel.
Hey.
Before I open it up for comment to the commissioners, do you have any commentary or any questions for this planning commission?
No, I think we talked enough about it last week, and I think we feel if we can get this approved, we can start hopefully in the next couple of months, get the site plan further along and start construction by the end of summer, hopefully.
Nice, very good. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant or Mark?
I do.
Mayor Williams?
Mark, this is the only place this could ever happen is right where it's at. Is that correct?
Well, only place that's zoned for that right now, yeah, unless we zoned another area outside of the mixed-use town center as PCD.
Okay. That's all I had.
Any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
No comment?
Very good. Okay, thank you very much,
Thank
Daniel,
you.
for coming tonight. Discussion closed. We have a motion on, it's been seconded on the floor. I'll ask if the motion stands as presented.
Yep.
All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes? Noes? No noes? Mark, let the record show agenda item number 8, request to amend Farragut zoning ordinance in the PCD for automobile-oriented use that's frontage on a major arterial street, may have a drive-through under certain conditions, and that would be approval of resolution PC-25-02. Is approved unanimously.
This will go to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in one of their meetings in March for first
We
reading.
have, when is the staff meeting on the site plan? Is that coming up?
The concept plan revision will be on the Planning Commission's agenda for the March meeting,
Are you
March
talking about staff
20th.
developer? What's March
No,
4th?
concept plan. He's got a
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we'll get comments on that to you all before, and
Will
so,
there be a staff development meeting?
I don't have it on a staff developer agenda, but we can meet.
Should it, or
We can meet at the
Okay.
staff level with you if you have any
Okay, that'd be
questions.
great.
I haven't
Should be-
gotten the
That
comments.
should be sufficient, just meet with Mark. and-
Yeah, because we've already looked at several iterations of it, but we'll give you comments next week on it. Yep.
Great, thank you. Agenda item number 9, discussion and public hearing on a request to amend the text of the Farragut zoning ordinance to lessen the setback for outdoor fences associated with commercial kennels in the general C1 zoning district, where the kennel abuts property that is not zoned residential or agricultural. Urban engineering applicant.
Yeah, this was also discussed last month. It involves a request, and this is probably a one-off thing too. I don't know how often this is going to happen again either. But it involves a request to lessen the setback for outdoor fences for kennels in the C1 zoning district, where the kennel property abuts property that is not zoned residential or agriculture. That setback is currently 50 feet. They're requesting to reduce it to 25 feet. We also mentioned last month at the workshop discussion that we maybe ought to tie that also to the future land use map, and that tie-in is reflected in ordinance 25-02. And so basically, the setback would be reduced from 50 to 25 if the abutting property was not zoned residential, agricultural, and not shown as a residential land use on the future land use map. The setback for the fence, if it abuts property that's zoned residential or agricultural, or property that is shown as residential land use on the future land use map will remain as 250 feet, so that would be unchanged. So with that, the staff does recommend approval of the resolution that supports this ordinance, Resolution PC-25-01.
Okay, for the record, what is it, what is the zoning that it abuts to now, just for the record?
It's all commercial.
Commercial.
C1, yeah. Christ Covenant is zoned commercial, and the Mormon Temple property is zoned commercial.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion and a second on the floor. Mark, is there anybody signed up to speak? to this
No,
item?
sir.
I was going to ask to open this up for the commissioners. Do you have any questions for the applicant? Is it necessary to bring the applicant up? This point in time? Jeremiah, thank you. We're going to try to keep that simple. Open up to the commissioners. Any discussions or further questions for Mark or for the applicant? Nope.
None.
Okay, we have discussion is closed. So now I ask that all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Noes? No noes? Mark, let the record show that agenda item number 9, request to amend the text to the Farragut zoning ordinance to lessen the setback from 50 to 25 feet for outdoor fences.
And this also will go to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, because they'll have to approve the ordinance. Sure.
Let me finish reading off the, we're going to make it official that resolution PC-25-01 has been approved unanimously.
Okay.
Okay, Jeremiah.
It occurred to me when I was looking at the agenda that the two items that I had on there kind of go together a little bit. By approving this, we may be able to shorten the length of that fence, the retaining wall. The way it was, we kind of had to compress our play yard in the back, making it run longer than we really wanted to. So by expanding it, we'll be able to bring it closer to the building and potentially eliminate some of that wall altogether. So
That'd be
should
great.
be
Yeah,
down too.
Super. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Good point.
Good planning.
Jeremiah, if you do have a revision of that, you'll make sure and submit your plan to the staff. It probably won't need to come back to the planning commission, but make sure staff's aware of your changes, because otherwise your as-bilt's gonna be all haywire. It won't match up. So, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you all. That concludes the public hearing and discussion items. Mark, do we have any utilities on tonight's agenda?
No, sir.
We don't? Well, with that said, the time is,
Citizen
We
forum.
do have a citizen forum.
And I wanted to speak.
okay. Do you get a blue card from Louise? Here.
No, I did not.
There's my blue card.
It's fine. I think it'll be
All
okay.
pass, please. I appreciate the time. I'm sorry I wasn't here last month. I was in vacation in a foreign land. So, you guys talked about the layout for the new school, and the thing that you were approving was Bourne Road. Designs to Bourne Road, I think, was part of the approval.
Yeah.
Bourne Road right now is 12-foot lanes. We know 12-foot lanes makes for a speedway. We have a speedway on McPhee Road, they have 12-foot lanes. We have a speedway on Everett Road, they have 12-foot lanes. And quite frankly, that area of Bourne Road that is improved is a speedway. I am asking, I don't know how we do this. Do we go back to Knox County and ask them and tell them we're okay with 11-foot lanes to the bus entrance and then 10-foot lanes beyond the bus entrance? Because I believe if we ever go to improve Bourne Road, that's the lane width we're looking at for Bourne Road. If it ever gets improved, I don't know. Reducing it to 11-foot lanes gives us a little bit more green space, less asphalt, green space in between the trail or sidewalk or what have you. And reducing it to 10-foot lanes would be in character beyond the bus entrance, that would be in character with what we plan to do for the rest of Bourne Road. But 12-foot lanes is overkill, unnecessary, and creates a fast road. So I know that we can't discuss this right now because it's not on an agenda, but I believe that we need to come back and revisit that. However, we need to revisit that, and I hope that if we revisit that this planning commission would entertain that. That's my
Okay.
public input.
Thank you, Louise. And the time is 8 PM, and without objection, the February 20th.
Did you say you had another blue card?
No, it was just.
Brian, did you have that?
Well, it wasn't really blue.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Very good.
He was.
Got it back. All right, Farragut Municipal Planning Commission meeting is now adjourned at 8 PM on February 20th, 2025.